Aloha, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. Last week, we talked about what is a microgrid. And as we continue into 2024, it's time we talk about the energy elephant in the room, microgrids versus traditional power grids. If you've been thinking about what your business energy solutions might look like, this is definitely one for you. So let's unpack the differences, the advantages, and why microgrids might just be the energy makeover your business needs. Before we jump into microgrids, let's kind of set the stage with what we're all familiar with, the traditional power grid. This is a centralized system that's been powering our homes and businesses for decades. It's like this vast network of power stations, mostly large scale, T&D lines, transmission lines, and distribution centers that deliver electricity over long distances. But here's the thing, the system has served us well. It's kind of like that old family car. It gets the job done, but it's not exactly efficient or eco friendly. And when it breaks down, everyone feels it. And sometimes it doesn't look as good anymore. Enter the microgrid. This is a game changer. Now imagine a more agile, more resilient, a greener solution. This is where the microgrids come in. A microgrid, like we talked about last week, is essentially a localized power grid. This can operate independently or in conjunction with the main grid, the main utility grid. It's like having this sophisticated mini power plant right at your doorstep that caters to a specific geographical area. So think business campus, college campus, neighborhood. So let's look at the key differences between a microgrid and a traditional grid. Number one, localization of energy production. So unlike the traditional grid where the energy is produced kind of in a remote area and transmitted over long distances, microgrids, on the other hand, generate power close to where it's used. This reduces transmission losses and increases efficiency. The second difference is energy source diversity. So microgrids love variety. They can integrate a mix of energy sources like solar, wind, even conventional generators. So this flexibility is like a complete different contrast to the more homogeneous energy sources from the traditional grid. Number three, difference, resilience, and reliability. This is a big one because microgrids are designed to be resilient. So when the main grid falls out because of extreme weather or other disruptions, microgrids can disconnect and continue to operate independently. This ensures a constant energy supply, which is, to some degree, a lifesaver for businesses. And if we think back when California started to allow what they call public safety power shutoffs. Look it up, PSP, whatever you want to call it. When they started allowing uh, utilities in California to enact these public safety power shutoffs, what that meant was, wildfire season in California is now a year-round event. So, in order to help slow down the spread of wildfires, they would allow the utility to actually shut off parts of the grid so that it would hopefully reduce the spread. Well, we've been dealing with companies that have their power shut off and they're miles away from any disruption of what's going on with potential wildfire spread. So that's just part of the grid that they're connected to. So imagine being in that situation where you're removed from this event, but because you are part of that grid that has been shut off, your business is shut down, your power is off. So that's another difference. The fourth difference is efficient energy management. Microgrids use advanced energy management systems that they usually optimize energy use, they reduce costs, and even predict future energy needs. So it's kind of like having a smart assistant for your energy needs. It really works. I've seen so many beautiful examples of how this smart AI energy management system, BMS, just whatever you want to call it. There's so many intellectual um, parts that go into creating a more sophisticated energy management system. Uh, Now, the last part of the difference between a microgrid and traditional grid, the last one that I will go into is sustainability. With the ability to integrate renewable energy sources, microgrids generally are cleaner and greener. This significantly reduces the carbon footprint, aligning with the sustainability goals of many modern businesses. Now, the big question: why businesses should care? In 2024, businesses are not just about profits, they're about making positive impact, both environmentally and socially. Here's why microgrids are becoming a real popular choice for businesses in this day and age. Number one, they're cost effective. By generating power on site and reducing the dependency on the main grid, businesses can see a significant savings in energy costs. Number two, energy independence. Relying less on the main grid means fewer headaches during peak demand times, during grid outages. You just have more control over your energy supply, right? Um, and we talked a little bit about it yesterday, how it was astonishing to me from the financial standpoint for many businesses that that utility costs are seen as a fixed cost. And I think we can all agree, I've never seen a utility bill that is exactly the same. Every single month it changes, right? So having this independence, being able to not only predict and see what's going on, but it helps manage your business much more effectively. Number three, why businesses should care: enhanced brand image. Saying that you put on solar is cool. Saying that you're doing solar and batteries is cool. But implementing a microgrid, that is a statement. It shows your commitment to innovation, to sustainability, to resilience. This boosts your brand in the eyes of your customers and your partners. It says, I care. It says that if the power ever shuts off, my employees aren't going to be walking around in the dark and scared. It says that if the power shuts off, all of my customers aren't going to have to worry about it. It just really shows that you care about your customers and your partners and those that you do business with. So now, what does this look like? Okay. Adopting a microgrid is a journey, and it really is important to start on the right foot. So we'll talk a little bit about what this looks like. First thing, feasibility study. You need to begin with a thorough analysis of your energy needs, as well as whether or not a microgrid is feasible for your business. Now, I'll touch on this shortly. The next step is design and planning. You need to make sure that you collaborate with experts and real professionals to design a microgrid that suits your specific requirements, as you take into factors like your location, your energy demands, different resources that are available. Now, these two go hand in hand, in my opinion. Why? Because if a business, there's a lot of solar companies out there, and many of us have dealt with solar companies where give me your utility bill, give me a couple of utility bills. Those that are being really good say, give me 12 months of utility bills so I can really do a good analysis of your energy needs. If any of these companies say that they can help you with a microgrid and they only ask for 12 months of utility bills, they really don't understand what a microgrid is supposed to do. And what I mean by that is the utility bill in and of itself is not going to give them the data that they need. What they need is the interval data. They need to be able to know what your data looks like on any given day at any given time. Meaning, an office building, they come into work and the energy is not being used. Everybody starts showing up at 9 o'clock. So all the energy starts going on at 8 o'clock, right? So everything, huge spike. And then now you've got this big spike and it stays the same because everybody's in the office until 5 o'clock, and then boom, it drops down. That's one profile. Would the profile of building a microgrid for that business be the same as an industrial center that's running 3 shifts, 24/7, that has all of these different spikes, whether it be equipment, whether it be AC, whatever that looks like? So that's why it's so important when we talk about a feasibility study, designing and planning. It's not just give me a utility bill, give me a couple, give me 12. You need to go deep into understanding what the energy usage looks like today, what it's looked like in the past, what it could look like in the future. Are we creating a runway for your future needs? Okay. And that's just on the feasibility and design and planning. The next thing that we should be looking at is regulatory navigation, right? We need to understand and comply with local regulations as well as incentives for these microgrid installations, right? So there's solar that most people are going to be putting on. There's batteries. Are there rebates, incentives available, tax credits for us to integrate this? There's natural gas, there's hydrogen, there's all these other ways for us to bring a microgrid into a unique situation that allows for the maximum incentives available, as well as being able to comply with regulations. There are a lot of places that won't allow you to use natural gas, especially here in California. So you really need to understand what this looks like. Now, the next one that we're talking about is installation and integration. You really need to work with experienced professionals for a smooth installation and integration process. I cannot even emphasize how scary this process is, right? Maybe another time I'll share with you some of the scary stories that I've been asked to kind of step in and help with. But here's an example: solar and battery installation. Customer says, okay, we got the solar guys, they're experts in solar. They go ahead and install the solar system, get it permitted, get it all turned on, and everything is working perfectly. Then they go ahead and bring in the battery installer. This is the battery manufacturer, installer, well, whoever that may be, but they go ahead and install it. Everything works great, turn it on, get it fully permitted, everything works good. Now we've tried to bring it together so that it could become a microgrid, put controls so that we can do, efficient way to disconnect from the grid, all of these things. And now the moment we put it together to operate as a microgrid, it doesn't work. Whose fault is it? Well, the solar guy says, my stuff is work. I got all permitted. Everything's good. Must be him. Well, the battery guy says, well, all of my stuff is permitted. It's working. Must be him. Whose fault is it? Interoperability. That's the number one word in microgrids. Interoperability. How do these two independently working systems automatically not work when we bring them together? So that's where the installation and integration with your right partners is absolutely critical, because you can get people that specialize in solar and have done great work in solar. Do not, I repeat, do not think that those guys that are doing good in solar can help you with a microgrid. If they do not know how to integrate a microgrid, then they need to learn. And vice versa. On the other side, same thing with your battery provider. A microgrid integration specialist knows the interoperability workings. So the last part that I'll go into is O&M, operations and maintenance, ongoing management, whatever that looks like, right? O&M. Now, to be able to bring in this ongoing management, you've got to utilize advanced management systems for efficient operations and maintenance of your microgrid. And I don't know a lot of companies that actually have staff that have the capabilities, experience, and knowledge to do a full O&M, operations and maintenance, on their microgrid. And that's fine. But there's certain parts that could be handled by your staff. But the ability to bring in an outside company to handle your O&M needs, there's nothing wrong with it. In the past, I could wrench my cars all the time. I always fix my cars. Nowadays, I don't touch it. I seriously, I mean, I call me a baby, but I don't even do my own oil changes because the complexity of some of these things are a lot more than I want to deal with. Same thing with the operations and maintenance of a microgrid. So, as we march further into 2024, the shift towards a more sustainable, reliable, energy efficient solution is clear. Microgrids offer businesses a fantastic opportunity to be at the forefront of this shift. They're not just an alternative to traditional grids, they're a smarter, more resilient, and more sustainable energy solution. So, as you ponder your business's energy future, consider how a microgrid could not just power your operation, but also power your growth and brand image. Next week, we'll go into what are the main components of a microgrid. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time. Aloha.